carved into the Eifel Mountains is 25 kilometers of driving joy. Initially built as a showcase of German automotive engineering, the Green Hell has become the destination for drivers around the world looking to prove their might against one of the world's finest road courses. Hello everyone and welcome back to RaceSpotTV alongside Andrew Kinsella. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, and if you can't tell, I am excited. This is the week where the IndyCars head to the Nordschleife. No qualifying makes things even more interesting, but Andrew, fundamentally, this is the challenge of man versus the track, machine versus the track.
Absolutely. This is the purest test of racing that there is in the world, I think, Arjuna. This track is like no other. Only 8 laps, and you see it just because it is such a very, very long track that these guys have to contend with here today. It's almost impossible to memorize every single corner and get every single corner right, but at the same time, you can't make too many mistakes or else you can very easily find yourself in deep, deep trouble as the walls are so close and the track is so narrow. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic, fascinating race to watch, and I can't wait to get started here.
See, now that sounds like a challenge to me. Remembering all the corners here, it's almost as though I've done thousands of laps around here. No matter what platform we're talking about, very much like a place like Laguna Seca, this is a track that has built its charisma and its reputation off of the virtual world. Let's have a look at your series standings. We've got a couple of minutes, a bit more than we anticipated, to run you down through the latest comings and goings in your iRacing IndyCar community. Brandon Treno currently on top of the points with his Team i5G teammate right behind him. Adam Crane, Connor Harrington, David Porcelli then block the road between those i5G drivers and Adam Blocker, your defending series champion. Only 1 point separates Blocker from his teammate Alexander Van der Sant, while Rashad Craig, Chris Wilhite, Will Line all in the mix as well. Let's talk a bit more, though, about what the Nordschleife means for the iRacing IndyCar community. It means plenty of people go and run away and hide, and I don't completely blame them if I'm being totally honest with you, but it's also the week where we tend to see some newer names, some newer faces come and join us. 12 months ago, we had the likes of Paddy Wolf, the Team Redline driver. A year before that, Alex Smoliar, who's got Formula 3 experience in the real world, stole the fastest lap away from me. It's a week when we welcome people to this IndyCar community, and just in time for your iRacing Indy 500 in the month of May.
Absolutely. It's almost a gateway into the IndyCar community and this fantastic car that we've been watching Monday after Monday here. It's drivers that you don't see typically running it that gives it a shot, and then even in some cases you see that they fall in love with the car and start driving it a little bit more. So it's definitely an opportunity for the IndyCar community, but also for the Nürburgring Nordschleife community, because there's definitely a strong contingent of people who specialize in running this circuit in any car available, and the IndyCar is definitely one of the biggest challenges around this circuit.
Big week for the VLN, Nürburgring Landstracken community as well, because you've got the iRacing NEC kicking off this weekend with the first of its 4-hour races. So if you like some GT3 action or TCR GT4 MX5 and you didn't get enough of that action over a week ago at the iRacing Nürburgring 24 hours, it's a week where drivers get themselves built up for what lies in store. Practice about to come to an end. Very quickly, Andrew, talk to us about the challenges of lap 1 here, especially when you're ordered by iRating rather than any qualifying times.
So lap 1 is definitely going to be the most challenging portion. As you mentioned, no qualifying, so that means that we have to go by iRating. So that doesn't necessarily mean that the fastest drivers are going to be at the front or the back of this field. So it's all going to be mixed up. And that turn 1, you see this old circuit that we're looking at right now with the carousel and all that. But turn 1 here is on the new circuit, on the Grand Prix circuit, and it is a hairpin turn that is always hair-raising for those drivers coming up into it in this first lap. It's basically almost like one of those landslide starts you see in the truck, where it goes so wide into such a narrow first turn. It's going to be extremely exciting. It's going to be treacherous, and I can't wait to see how these drivers handle it.
Let's run you down through the starting grid here in the Eifel Mountains at the Green Hell, the Nürburgring Nordschleife, for an 8-lap dash in your Dallara IR18. It's going to be easy. Car number equals grid positions. It will follow logically from there, but Graham Saunders of the Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing Team lines up alongside Adam Blocker. Saunders won in dramatic fashion 12 months ago with Severi Seppa spinning out through Galgenkopf on the final lap. What can he do? 12 months on from that. John Bodefer, another Geodesic Racing driver, lines up inside of Adam Crane, while David Porcelli, new colors for the VRS Satellite Racing driver David Porcelli. He'll be alongside Severi Seppa in that number 6 car. Timothy Reed and Brandon Traino share row 4, while Brian Carey and Antonio Gagliasso share row 5 to complete the top 10. Mitchell Welker and Andrew Marquez 11th and 12th respectively. Northern Motta and Alexander Van der Sant line up in row 7, while Rashad Craig, Frankie D, Brett Gardiner, and Brendan Lichtenberg complete the top 18. 2 more cars, Robert Malechka and a German name to join us at the Green Hell. It's Benjamin Kopke that will start shotgun in our field here today. It's very hard to have any sort of predictions here, Andrew, but other than chaos, other than carnage, what do you expect for 8 laps here today?
I think you summed it up fairly well, but I definitely think that those top 2, Graham Saunders and Adam Blocker, they're going to be very tough to beat, especially with them starting shotgun on the field here. They're definitely going to be very, very strong here, but I definitely want to look back at some of the other drivers in this field that we don't necessarily normally see here, like the Northern Motta, like the John Bedefers of the world. I think that it's going to be very fascinating to see what happens over the course of these 8 laps.
Now, has Adam Crane failed to take to the start?
He did, yes.
So that's already one driver not going to be involved in potential shenanigans. A quick thing that we should touch on here as well is red versus black tires. It's going to be interesting how they fare out in comparison with the two, but you take a look at the conditions, it's relatively cool compared to what we saw 12 months ago.
Absolutely. We've got the morning skybox here, and that's really going to help the drivers who have to have at least one lap on each of the compounds of those tires. So with that cool track temperature, it's going to make the red tires last just a little bit longer, but at the same time, it's going to be very difficult for them to keep it on for a full stint. There are 1- and 2-stop strategies available to these drivers. The 1 stop may be faster, but it's also very, very treacherous come lap 3 or 4 on those red tires.
Who's going to make up the most positions here? How many issues are we going to see? What does Malechka from 19th maybe hold in store for this race?
I think that it's going to be fascinating no matter what happens, and I'd say we're just about to find out here, Arjuna.
20 cars for 8 laps at the Nordschleife, the Green Hell. What more could you ask for? This is what virtual racing is all about. Green flag flies. We're underway in the Eifel Mountains. Great start by Graham Saunders, getting the launch down in towards the downhill braking zone of turn 1, where Adam Blocker will try and challenge around the outside. Remember, these tires yet to get up to temperature and pressure. Looks like that yellow and red car locking up the inside front as they work their way through what is a rather horrible arena section, especially when you have to balance these cars for the Nordschleife versus this GP section as well. Looks like Brandon Traino already up into 4th as he fights alongside with Severi Seppa. Nice move there from the King of the Bricks as we hug her right here, taking the shortcut on the GP section.
Yeah, you said it. That was one of my least favorite sections in all of iRacing, which is coupled with one of my favorite tracks in the Nürburgring Nordschleife. So it's a little bit ironic there, but really good start from everyone. And you saw Graham Saunders went pretty early there, and I think it just allowed everyone to get a little bit of separation there. All of these drivers know that this is not a race that's going to be won in that first corner on this first lap. So definitely nice orderly start there to get things going here.
I think Adam Blocker said he crashed 4 times in last year's strength of field race. Hugged the left through the Sabine Schmidt curve to get started on the German roller coaster. Brandon Traino has got those tires fired up and to the inside of John Bodefer. Contact between the two. Bodefer is a roadblock as they sweep themselves down into the Hudson back. Van der Sand's got front wing damage. A couple more cars scrambling for the hills. First bit of drama here as we get started on the Nordschleife.
Yeah, that was a bit of an optimistic move there from Brandon Traino. I don't really think that can be considered a legitimate passing zone under normal circumstances, but Traino was definitely looking to get forward and get after those leaders, and it cost Bedeffer a lot there. I'd say that they're a good 3 or 4 seconds back because of that. and it really stacked up the field, and I think Van de Sant, if anyone, made out the worst out of everyone there.
Now, I wonder if there was another car that had an issue. I got a brief look at a car going wide down the hill through the Hudson back. We'll get a look at that when we can, but you can see the top three have already broken away to the tune of 1.2 seconds. Live timing and scoring, RaceSpot.WTF/Indy. Follow all 20 of these cars here today and figure out what's going on with the mad scramble that we're seeing so far. Van de Sant still out there for those wondering with that front wing damage, but it's Saunders, Blocker, Traino, the three breaking away. Severi Seppa's in the hunt as well. Further back, you see John Bodefer right behind Gagliasso down into the foxhole. That's one of the fastest points on the track, and he gets that move done nice and easy as they work their way into Ardenau Forest.
That was a brave move there from John Bodefer. Really nice move there, and Gagliasso gave him just enough space to make that work. But back at the front here, it's a three-car battle here. Saunders, Traino, and Saunders, Blocker, and Traino has really come up onto the back here. He's got around Severi Seppa and is carrying the back of Adam Blocker here, and he really looks fast here today, Arjuna.
Down the hill through Callenhard, it was Saunders that got a lock of that inside front as it just disconnected from the ground through miss, hit, miss. So high commitment in these cars, and then down into the worst siphon, slowest part of the track on the Nordschleife. Maybe not as slow as turn one on the GP loop itself, but they all get through there tidily. Now it's four cars split by, 1.5 seconds or so, something like that. I see a couple of cars having issues further back. That's Timothy Reed. That we'll see Malechka try and come down the outside as they come down just past Wersife and into Exmuller. Let's have a look, though, as to what happened on that start and see if we can figure out exactly why. There were a couple more cars that had issues. So into the Speen-Schmidt curve. You saw that Traino was looking optimistic. You saw that he was looking aggressive. Now he's alongside. Does Bodefer turn in on him?
Bodefer does turn in just a little bit, but at the same time, it's really, really difficult to anticipate a move like that just happened. And I don't necessarily blame Bodefer for turning in there, but the real loser here is what you see with Alexander Van de Sant. He just is completely blind to what's going on in front. The car in front of him just stops, and he has lost his front wing, and he's lost a significant amount of time. But meanwhile, back up front, Adam Blocker's gotten around Graham Sanders here.
Do remember as they come into the carousel, what a fearsome corner this is. So tempting to go deep and try and carry plenty of momentum, but in reality it's more about the exit and getting onto the power, to use the diff, to rotate the car that gets the speed through. Remember that with this sort of a track, plenty of long runs out of corners. I think a lot of people misinterpret that the Nordschleife is ultimately that balance of trimming the car out to have maximum top-end speed versus having the mechanical grip, the aerodynamic performance through these fast sweepers to feel confident to push the car. We will see some variance in how much wing is being run, and I wonder if the run in towards Bravery into Mootkurve, I think Blocker might just have a slight edge on the top speed, at least right now.
Yeah, I definitely think that Blocker probably has a little bit less downforce, and it definitely looks like his car is working just a little bit more, has a little bit more compliance than Saunders does. Sanders is throwing the car around just a little bit more, and you can see Traino as well. I think it's just a little bit better from the series veterans versus Sanders. Of course, he does race in this series off and on, but he's not, I would say, one of the veterans like Blocker or Traino is.
We did see him during the ISOWC where he did have some good performances, but when you're working by yourself, it does become a lot harder to consistently be at the front with the setup development and iterations that go on. Saunders a little bit wide on the run into the second of the carousels. He'll hold on to that car, but this is now the crucial corner. Severi Seppa's lost a bunch of time. We'll grab a look at what happened to him in a couple of moments, but through Galgenkopf. How much speed can you carry through? You can see Saunders is a little bit tighter to the apex, might have been able to roll the momentum. Don't think either car at the front is on the push to pass. It's Brandon Traino that feels the need to burn one of those 10 usages of 70 horsepower spurts to try and close himself up. You also notice, if you have a quick look at the left side of your screen, that Saunders is on the black mark primary tire, which is the preferred option. Those reds, after now completing 25-odd kilometers, are screaming out in agony.
But here's Brandon Traino looking to the outside, but even with that push to pass, Brandon Traino wasn't able to get a really good run there on Sanders or Blocker. So definitely, I think That's safe to say that at this point, Brandon Treno has the most downforce out of this top three. We were talking about that earlier with just how many setup options there are available here. And one thing that you mentioned even before that was all of the bumps around here and all the elevation change and the off-camber stuff. And that's really what the big challenge is for these setup builders here, Arjuna.
Oh, Porcelli, Seppa down into turn one. It goes from bad to worse for that number 6 car who was a race-winning factor 12 months ago. That was a bit of a argy-bargy into turn one. You can see there's more contact, incidental potentially, as we got a quick look at that from that reverse sort of a camera angle. Saunders deep opens the door for Brandon Treno to pick a move down the inside as they sweep through the shortcut. Oh, I thought this was going to be a boring race. I could not have been more wrong, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, it is chaos here, and I did not expect after the first lap for the top three to be covered by a blanket here, but that's exactly what we have, and Brandon Treno's looking extremely racy on Adam Blocker here coming into the exit of the GP circuit here.
Oh, you could just see the concertina, the stack up as Saunders got a little bit too close to the rear end. Now Blocker,
Treno.
down the inside through the Sabine Schmidt curve. That's a move that the queen of the Nordschleife herself would have been proud of. Blocker loses not one but two.
Yeah, that was an opportunistic pass from Sanders there. He allowed Treno to sort of move Blocker out of the way with that lunge, and then he just took straight advantage of it, and now Blocker is back on the back foot after looking so strong throughout all of lap one. And this is where the red tires are really going to be a disadvantage for Adam Blocker, is that I don't think that he's going to have nearly the type of fight back that he had with Sanders on lap one.
I think you just got to hold on to the back. I would suspect that Blocker comes in this time by. Let's have a look at a replay of what happened to Severi Seppa at the end of that first lap. Man, just a bit wide on the run down into that second carousel. That's where he lost the one position. It snowballed from there. We'll get a better look at that second bit of contact in a couple of moments' time, but down the hill off to the run through Quiddelbacher-Hoa through Flugplatz. They come in towards Schroudenkraut and Arenberg, and these cars, it's basically flat, as committed as you can go. But to be fair, that's basically the entire track. After the issues on lap number one, John Bodefor still runs in 4th position.
Yeah, Bodefor is looking very, very strong here. He has not let these three really get away. He's been maintaining position really well. The question will be whether he can work his way back up into sort of a lead draft situation here. Because he's going to definitely need some help, especially down that very, very long back straightaway that we have. And then Brian Carey quietly working his way up into 5th place as well. He's only 7 seconds back, which after... It sounds like a lot on lap 2 to be 7 seconds back, but around a track like this, Arjuna, that's not very far at all.
Now I wonder, has Brian been mixed up in... Oh, yeah, well, this is 3 wide. Something's going to happen here, and he's the... Oh. We'll need to get a couple of looks at that, because I only got a brief look before I got distracted by something on the timing screen, but does Brian just move right under the brakes? Now, the track goes to the right anyway.
Yes. So what happens there is Severi Seppa sort of fades a little bit into Brian. Brian reacts and then sort of follows that pit exit, whereas Porcelli was trying to get a little bit better of a diamond onto the corner. And in that 3-wide situation, you just have to be so aware of what the drivers around you are doing. And I don't think he realized that Brian was trying to follow that pit exit white line, basically. So to me, that's just one of those miscommunications that can happen when you're 3 wide into the first corner at the Nürburgring.
3 wide, never a good idea. Let's be just completely upfront with that. It's always kind of asking for some sort of disaster. And speaking of disaster, as you see Graham Saunders on the button to try and close to Brandon Treno. Let's have a look at a replay. Oh, is there oil on the track? There must be.
Oh my!
There must be. What's gone on here?
I feel like that we need that crazy clown music going on here, Arjuna. It was so so there was a big incident with the 13 car of Mata coming out or coming through that corner, and then I'm not sure who else got collected there, but basically it was just nowhere to go. Yeah, he just lost the rear end, and then you have no brakes when you break the front suspension like that, so he really couldn't do anything. Kopke couldn't get out of the way, and then Rashad Craig sees them, locks the brakes up, and then once you lock the brakes, you're just basically a passenger, and he just joins them in the fence there.
I want to focus on this battle at the front, but there's so much going on that we're having to look at all of these replays. Reminds me of Phillip Island last year. So Van der Sant's got that car fixed up, and the run through Bergwerk pushing too hard. It's a crucial acceleration zone because you're climbing up the hill all the way then into that first hairpin before the carousel. That's what happened to Van der Sant on his second lap. Back at the front as they work their way through the fun part of the Nordschleife, just about to come down into the Flansgarden jump. It's Brandon Traynor that has an 0.8 of a second advantage to Graham Saunders, then a further 1.3 back to Adam Blocker. I've got to say, Brandon Traynor's red tires holding on delightfully so far.
He's been doing a great job keeping those tires under him, but Sanders is definitely not letting him get away. Only 0.5 of a second still separating your top two after a lap and a half at the Nürburgring Nordschleife. That is just incredible, Arjuna.
People have told me you can't race here. To those people I say, you've never actually tried to race around here. I've had some great races. I saw George Simmons in the chat as well here on YouTube. He will attest to the type of racing that you can have, no matter what sort of a car. 4-hour endurance races. George Simmons has seen photo finishes across the line. Looks like Gardner might have had an issue as well as both Crane and Van der Sant get past him. Gardner is actually down on pit road, I can tell you. We're riding on board with the Alpine Stars Geodesic #1, the car that started from the front of the field, and this is where you see that downforce. You see the gear as well, the ratio that he's got. He's pulling, but not as much as he'd like.
But at the same time, he looks like he just might be able to make this move happen again. I think Brandon Traynor just with a little bit more downforce than Graham Sanders has, and he makes that move happen. But one thing I want to bring to your attention, Arjuna, in the background of this shot, Graham Bettifer is within touch of Adam Blocker here, so he's down to 2.5 seconds behind the lead of this race. He is very much still a factor, and it could be a 4-horse race going.
Welker has gotten past carriers. There they come, I should say, because Traynor's in. Blocker should be following him. In fact, Blocker stays out.
Blocker's not. So I think Blocker is going for the 1-stopper here, whereas Brandon Traynor's going for the 2-stopper, and that could explain why Traynor was so fast, is if he was on that lighter fuel load, that would have allowed him to keep the tires under him just that little bit longer, and it could be the reason that he was looking so competitive. But Blocker is definitely going for a 2-stopper or for a 1-stopper now. He's going for 4 laps.
I don't think I understand that decision, to be honest. We talked about the track conditions earlier. It's cool, which means you're able to grip up a little bit more. You're able to run full throttle a little bit more. You can see he's now 2.7 back. He's definitely just conserving the fuel. I would almost wonder, with the pit delta here being about 33 seconds, I'm not sure this is the best idea, to be honest. Porcelli and Welker go side by side into the right-hander that leads you onto the back straightaway of the GP circuit. Welker loses out there. I guess we'll wait and see. The best thing about racing is the answers are presented to you in about 40-odd minutes' time.
Yeah, well, I think what Blocker's trying to do is I think he's put it in fuel map 2, and he's trying to save for a 1-stopper here. So he cuts out that 33 seconds that Brandon Traynor is going to lose on pit lane here.
Who's this? Behind the... Oh, this is really not a great camera angle. Oh, Brian Carey.
Brian Carey.
Well, he was setting his expectations low, saying that if he had any issues, he'd come and talk to us. I think he's going to be talking to us sooner than he would have wanted, as here's Blocker feeling that pressure from behind. Gap up front, now 4 full seconds.
And that was 100% cold tires for Brian Carey. He basically locked it up going through that shortcut there. And it's one of those cases where the track isn't used very often, so it suddenly loses grip, and he just pushed straight off into the wall here. You can see he just locks up the brakes on the way in, carries way too much speed, and then just can't save it.
The only bit of good news there is he might just have damaged the front wing rather than any of the steering. It's Blocker through Schwoudenkraut's getting a bit spooked. He'll let Bodefer go on through, and if his goal is to do fuel saving and to make this a one-stop race, not the worst call in the world. Looking back at Severi Sepper and Gagliasso squabbling over 5th position now because Mitchell Welker's had some sort of an incident. We'll try and pick up what happened to that number 11 machine that's always quick on a road course. Down the hill into the compression, the Vauxhall they come. I said this was high speed. It's as higher speed as you find through the very long Dottinger, and that's because the Dottinger climbs upward at the very end of it. That's downhill until you get into the compression into Ardenau Forest, where we find these cars working their way through there. Was that Sepper getting a bit sideways? Yes, he was, but these new tires, you can really manhandle them a little bit more. Looks like a lot of fun for the drivers here today.
Yeah, absolutely. These drivers throwing the car around, and you can see just how much development that the iRacing staff has put into these tires, because 12 months ago, you could not do that with this car around here. It's a treat to watch these guys just throwing and abusing these tires because they're really wringing the necks of these cars to go as fast as they can and taking some really big risks while they're at it, I might add.
I like this camera view. On board with Frankie D in the number 16. Just watch the speed, watch the commitment, watch the lines. We're a bit wide through Wersifen, but I don't blame him given how much momentum you carry down into the corner. Now into Exmuller. Not the most important of zones, but it's so easy to go a bit wide. Off camber at the very apex, slide wide, then up the hill. You come in towards the louder left, the very next corner before Berger, which, like I mentioned earlier, is the most important corner, I think, on the track, if you ask me, because it's all the way uphill from there. You can go side by side into the Moot Curver, into Bravery. A little bit sloppy from D, but they're not going to lose the draft, which might just be the most important factor. Someone in the YouTube chat has rightly pointed out that 4 laps on fuel is doable in terms of fuel mileage. The questions really will be the conditions of those red mark tires by the time you're limping that car back onto pit lane.
Oh, and Sanders has had an issue.
Your race leader. Oh. And that's just before he's...
And he's beached it. He's high-sided it.
How has he beached it there? That is perplexing. It will give the race lead to Bodefors. Frankie D's had an issue as well, where it rains,
Gagliasso.
it pours. Oh, and Gagliasso too. This is very much last man standing Royal Rumble style race. Let's have a look at what happened to Mitch Welker, and then we'll go and figure out what happened to the rest of your field. Oh, just on the curb on the inside into the Hudson back, and that's an instant trip back to pit lane, and might even be an instant trip back home. I think he might have just pressed that quick Alt F4 button. Get a good look on board here. It's just so much commitment into the corner, and when you realize you made a mistake, there's no time to compensate.
Yeah, just way too much speed there from Welker, and as soon as he hit the curbs here, these curbs are not made for Formula cars to hit them. They are made for GT cars, and they are difficult in a GT car to hit at that. So these Formula cars, they just get thrown right out to into the outside wall, and now it's day done for Mitchell Welker, and he is out of the sim. So definitely unfortunate for Welker, but suddenly in the lead, Arjuna, we have Bodefors.
Yeah, that car that had issues on lap 1, wasn't it? Let's go ahead very quickly, though. I want to see what happened to Graham Saunders, because he was looking quite comfortable. So it's out of the Moot Curver, in towards Klostertal. Looks okay. Oh, he just pushes wide, and yeah, once you're in the grass there, you're just going way too fast to bring that back into control. But how does he high-side it here? Usually you high-side it on the curbs. Maybe it's just broken suspension.
Yeah, well, it's because his front suspension, and I'm guessing probably his left rear suspension as well, was broken, so that just basically collapsed the left side of the car. And then there is a little bit of a lip to the side of the road there, and that's what got him caught out. But this is what happened here with Gagliasso and D. So you can see that Gagliasso is just coming down the straightaway here, and there's just going to be a small mistake, I think, coming through this corner, and D has got nowhere to go, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, like I said, you're climbing up the hill. They were both on the button, and oh, he's going for a gap that was just never there. And just before they turn themselves in towards that Bravery complex, which is, like the name suggests, requires a metric boatload of bravery. You can see the cars on pit lane. Blocker. Now, has Blocker had a technical issue because he has disappeared from my timing screen? There's the look on board, but much more pressing concerns. What just happened to Adam Blocker, and why is the timing screen not liking him right now?
He has disconnected from, it was dropped due to packet loss, so I think that is a disconnection from Adam Blocker, so really unfortunate for Adam. He was looking really strong if that fuel strategy was going to work.
And another one bites the dust. Brandon Traynor will take over the race lead. Blocker will be scored as the lead car until they come back across. In fact, never mind. There we go. Blocker's going to start dropping down by virtue of where he stopped on track. But for a driver that we know is going to be missing many a race, especially coming up to the month of May, where he'll be in Indianapolis, of course, trackside duties with the NTT IndyCar Series. It's going to be a quite frustrating outing for him. Some good points would have been on the line to at least have a fighting chance of being in the top 5 in the championship when all things are said and done. But now we got a 2-horse race for the race win here, it looks like. Brandon Traino versus that car that we thought was out of it. Coming on to the GP section on lap 1, John Bodefer still in the mix here.
And importantly for Traino, Bodefer was not trying to do that stretch that we think that Blocker may have been trying to do. So that means that they are both on the same strategy. Both have 2 stops. The only difference right now, Bodefer on the red marked tires, Traino on the black marked tires. We expect Traino to stay on the black tires for the rest of this race. But Bodefer, I think he's trying to get his stint out of the way right now. And somehow, Arjuna, David Porcelli, through all that chaos, is now your 3rd place runner.
Just survive. It's as simple as that. Survive and you'll be there in a good spot at the end. That's what sometimes you need in racing. That gap, by the way, for the lead is already down to 1.3. Those red tires just have so much more grip, especially at the start of the run where you're seeing Bodefer make significant headway into the advantage that Brandon Traino has. But I don't think Traino's going to be too worked up just yet, because he knows that as long as he can stick around with that other car, maybe in a lap's time in the 20-odd kilometers before they get back to the start-finish line, those tires behind might have just burned themselves off.
Absolutely. It's definitely one of the weirdest sensations. Normally you can mark your tire fall off by going through the same corner every lap, but you can't really do that here at the Nordschleife. It's basically probably every quarter of a lap you really notice just how much your red tires are falling off compared to the black tires. So Bodefer definitely trying to take advantage of this time while the red marked tires are doing a decent job, but he's got a lot to do. He's only 1 second back now, but he's definitely got to find a way past Traino sooner rather than later, and that's really going to be the hardest part for Bodefer, is he's got to be in a good position to make a pass, because there are large sections of this track where we've seen it's very, very difficult to pass people.
You can pass, but it's going to result in some death. It's going to require some tolls to be paid as well. Down the hill they come through Callanhard. You can see that 3 behind is just so much more committed over the bumps and compressions through that fast chicane. You can see Traino's car just bumping itself around. Down into Wersifen, again they come. Looking nice and tidy for Traino. He knows that just keeping calm, keeping smooth is what he needs to do. This is, of course, one of those spots where John Bodefer will be trying to get the run. Not out of here, of course, but out of the next corner, through the Lauda left and in towards Bergwerk. This is where that's the crucial run that is about to come itself up. And I tell you what, he told us we can go and bug him. I don't think he realized we were going to do it when he's going to fight for a lead. Brandon Traino, do you hear us?
I hear you loud and clear, Gina. I'm really scared right now. I don't know where I'm going.
You got your co-driver to help you, though. Chris, come on, help him out.
Yeah, just straight over here. Just go straight. Just go straight.
And not at all fighting for the lead, but Brandon Traino has given it up for now. Traino, I'm going to bug you some more. How scared are you on a scale of 1 to 10? How has it been going overall, though?
Well, I don't know. I don't know where I'm going. I think this is a right-handed corner. I don't know. I'm just following this guy because he seems really fast. I think I wrecked him the first lap, and I feel really bad about that, but, you know. Oh, I think this is the carousel corner.
That's the carousel. Go left.
Chris, is this your way of at least getting in on the fun?
Yes. Yes, it is. I'm having fun.
How much?
I'm not having fun.
I'm having more fun, honestly.
I'll ask one more question, and then I'll let you guys go. What was it like on the start, Brandon?
Well, he's trying to wreck in front of me, so I don't... It was chaotic, that's for sure. This
is without doubt the best content that we've had on RaceSpot. I'll leave you for now, but I'll bug you more later in the race. Good luck, guys.
Yeah, it's great. Appreciate it.
Big thank you for the T-by5G guys for letting us in, and you could tell that Brandon Traino was a lot more stressed than he wanted to be.
Absolutely. He is on the limit trying to do everything he can to keep Bodefer in sight, and yeah, that was definitely some of the more entertaining television we've seen on RaceSpot in a while.
I've gotten to do weather reports with Kevin Ellis Jr. Now I've gotten to do co-driver segments with Christopher DeMeritt and Brandon Traino. What will be next? You let us know. Down the hill through Flansgarden. Look how much downforce that they've got, even in these relatively spec cars where they're stuck to the ground in a place where you do get some significant air. in a GT machine, and you were talking about the curbs earlier, Andrew, where, you know, even a GT car doesn't like them. Talk to the GT3 cars after the end of the Nürburgring 24 here on iRacing. I don't think there was a single car that didn't have damage to its front, rear, side, whatever.
Well, and in the IndyCar here, Arjuna, there are places where you get air and land on the under tray of this car, so I'd be shocked if every car didn't have damage even at the end of 8 laps, let alone a full 24-hour race like the GT3 cars did. But one thing to note, I will say Adam Blocker has reconnected. He is 3 minutes and 50 seconds behind the leader.
He's on the lead lap.
He's still on the lead lap. That is one thing for Blocker, and we've seen how this race has gone so far, so he definitely could still get at least a top 10, if not a top 5 out of this, Arjuna.
Never say never, I tell you what. Although I think it's a bit of a shame that we're not going to see the way that a one-stop would have fared compared to the two-stop. Here they come, though, up the hill in towards Tiergarten. Final corner on the Nordschleife loop, but they'll hook a left, or rather hook a straight instead of hooking a right there where the cones are to continue on. Bodeford doesn't come down onto pit lane, will be the next time around, you'd assume, for him. Malechko, I asked you what was possible for him, starting from, what was it, 19th? Well, he's up into 5th.
Yeah, and this is exactly what having low expectations can sometimes do for you at the Nordschleife. Malechko was not trying to set the world on fire, not trying to catch anyone, really. He was just going to run his own race, and it's been working so far. But now that we've said that, he definitely still has half the race still to go, so anything can happen. And hopefully we haven't jinxed him too bad by talking about him.
It's okay. If he does, then it's totally fine. Down into the shortcut they come once more. We get some great looks of behind the barriers there. Gap just 1.2. I do think that if Traino can hold on for a quarter of the Nordschleife here, he'll be in a good spot, because those tires, well, they would have very much reached the cliff. The question is, how quickly is that number 3 sliding off it?
Yeah, I definitely think that the number 3 will be in at the end of this lap. It's definitely looking like the tires have reached the peak, as you say, and they're at least over the edge, if not, as Traino gets very loose coming through the corner there. There's no question, as we saw from the interview, that Traino is pushing 10/10 throughout this entire lap, which is definitely saying something, given how fast the Traino normally goes. So he is really pushing it to the limit, and it's definitely fascinating to watch these two.
And, you know, we've had this look with Brandon Traino a number of times. I don't think we've ever seen him this stressed. Usually he's relatively calm, relatively cool. Of course, we have seen him frustrated on occasion as well. But he doesn't look scared necessarily, although I think there's a bit of fear. But there's trepidation, there's worry, and there's that inevitability that if he makes a mistake, that's race done.
Well, the thing is, Arjuna, when you're going as fast as Brandon Traino is and as on the edge as Brandon Traino is, the one thing that you have is practice and knowing the course and knowing where you're going. When you don't know where you're going and you're still trying to go as fast as Brandon Traino is, it's absolutely draining and it's terrifying. And to see how well he's been doing it, it's been really impressive, because I know he doesn't have that much experience here at the Nordschleife. He doesn't know the track that well, so watching him go as quickly as he is has been really, really impressive.
Just watch that rear suspension at work right now. It's earning its due. The number of bumps here, of course, not really being resurfaced in probably, 10 years or so now. Of course, the version in iRacing has that older surface before some of the sections. Of course, you're not going to resurface all 25 kilometers. You're going to do it chunks at a time. Through Metzfeld they go. A very, very tricky corner. So deceptively simple as well. Past Nürburgring 24 just a week or so ago, we saw a car right after that on the braking zone, then run into the tire wall. There's so many different ways that you can make a mistake there. Down under a second is this gap.
I'm not sure that I've ever heard someone describe any corner on the Nürburgring as simple, Arjuna.
Oh, well, once you know it, it's simple. It's just like that. Big lockup, by the way, from Bodeford there down through Wurslife. And I said this before, it's not unexpected, because that left front gets up in the air, and so when it then lands back on terra firma, the rest of the car is rotating, or the rest of the wheels, at a different speed to when that wheel last was making contact with the ground. So that's not a complete scare.
But the thing is, you're just so on edge throughout this entire lap that even small scares, even little things can really start to add up, and it's really hard to get your heart rate down. Fortunately, you do have a few longer straightaways, but even those straightaways, as you can see, aren't really very straight, Arjuna.
No, they're really not. I see a question from Christian Steele to explain the topic of gap management. Here, I don't think you're doing any gap management. You're just trying not to die. It's as simple as that. You can see in 6th gear, maybe a slightest of lifts there from Bodefer through Bravery. That's usually a dab of the brakes and a downshift in a GT3 car. That's the level of performance that we're talking about with these ones. But in terms of gap management, there's only 3 inevitabilities, to quote Sir Lewis McLeod. The gap's either going to decrease, it's going to stay where it is, or it's going to increase. That's an award-winning real-world commentator, ladies and gentlemen. Captain Obvious. Gap, though, 0.3 of a second. Those tires, well, we wondered how quickly they'd fall. Brandon Trainor's got to be patient until he gets back to the Dottinger Hohe.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that Traino really knows how to be patient, Arjuna. I think he's got one speed right now, and that is flat out. And he's pressuring the back of Bodefer. And Bodefer, this is really the danger zone for him. If he can get through this next third of a lap back to the front straightaway and back and get those red marked tires off of his car for this final 3-lap run to the finish, then he'll be feeling really good. But up until that point, it's going to be very, very nervous times for that number 3 car.
Now Trainer should be in this lap, I suspect. I think Bodefer probably comes in this lap too.
I suspect they're both in. It would shock me if Bodefer went another lap.
One thing to remember as well, let's quickly mention the push to passes. Again, a 70 or so horsepower spurt that will activate for upwards, up to 20 seconds. Slightly different than how it works in the real world, but you make do with what you've got. You can see Brandon Trainor's burned through 3. Bodefer's been a little bit more conservative with his so far. You would suspect that Traino's going to try and get the move done here, because if they're both pitting, you want to be that lead car down onto pit lane, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. With how little grip these tires will have left at the end of the laps, and the type of performance you need to really maximize that pit entry, you're definitely going to want to lead in Traino. He's surprisingly, Arjuna, not on the push to pass here, but he is in the draft, and he's going to see if he can just do it. Now he goes to the push to pass, almost 2/3 of the way down the straight. Really surprising, but nice tactics here, because I do think that Traino did take into account that while they only have 10 pushes, those pushes do have a time limit to them. It's not like it's going to last that whole straightaway, so he really waited until the end and made his move on Bodefer, and that's going to allow him a nice straight shot into the pit entry here.
And Arjuna repeats himself for the umpteenth time today. That's uphill, so I think that's a good call to use that extra horsepower once you're climbing up the hill. Now, have either of them sped onto pit lane? I know the pain of doing this. The first time IndyCars came to the Nordschleife, yours truly was leading into that first cycle of pit stops. Definitely was not leading. After that, you can see the graveyard of cars that are not going to get repaired. They are in such a damaged state. Porcelli stays out that additional lap, but it's not going to be too much of a factor. On to the jacks they come. Bodefer, you'd suspect, switches back to the primary tires. Traino rolls. Bodefer goes first, though. Neck and neck, but John Bodefer has the race lead on pit road.
And I suspect that all comes down to fuel, Arjuna. Bodefer only with the 2 laps there, whereas Traino had the 3 laps. Probably used up more of his fuel for that run, and that was the cost for him, is he just wasn't able to get back out in front of Bodefer. So now, after doing all that work coming into the on his in-lap, Traino has all the work still to do ahead of him on his out-lap as Bodefer gets very loose. This is really the danger zone, as we saw with Brian Carey. This is Bodefer nearly goes wide. Traino, oh, so close to the back of Bodefer there.
You see Severi Seppa at the background of your shot, but he owes us a pit stop. He's not really a factor when all things are said and done. He's more looking to the likes of those behind to see where he'll emerge in comparison to maybe a Robert Malechka. Looking on board with Brandon Traino as they work themselves into that faster flowing chicane. Can get off tracks here, but in an 8-lap race, not really, I think, the biggest factor. As they come through the left on the Sabine Schmidt curve, they'll start the German roller coaster again. Do we want to bug Brandon Traino in a battle for the lead? I think yes. Questions?
I think that we definitely need to ask him about how simple this track is.
Yes, and why this is the greatest track in the world.
Yeah, I'd say this is a good time to talk to Brandon. What do you think?
We'll wait until, again, we're out of Nürburgring. I'll let him settle into the stint for now, and then we'll go and disturb him a little bit more. You can see the gap's opened up to a second, actually. Bodefer is really quite rapid, and, you know, if Graham Saunders hadn't made his mistake, I think we very much could, if the one-stop for Blocker hadn't worked the way that he wanted. Been looking at an Alpine Stars Geodesic 1 and 2. Those cars, we talked about not seeing them too much. They've got a pretty decent lock on the aerodynamic balance as well as the chassis management of the car.
Yeah, I do think that that there is some benefit to having the amount of experience that some of these drivers have around the Nürburgring Nordschleife, and it's definitely coming through in not only the driving but in the setup building for Bodefer here. I think he's doing a fantastic job up front.
So down the hill they come once more. Next time at the line, which, let's be honest, is a almighty ways away from us. There'll be 2 to go. A little bit of a slide through our forest for both of the cars, but no harm, no foul on these black tires. The other thing that we should know is you can get away with the slides a little bit more. They're not as thermally pliant. I don't know what the right word is, but I think that's probably a decent one. Pliant as the primaries tend to be.
Yeah, absolutely. They're definitely operating well closer to the bottom end of the temperature range than the top end, whereas the Reds almost tend to be sometimes operating over the top of the temperature range, as both of our leaders very nearly did the exact same thing and carried too much speed through that corner there, Arjuna.
Yeah, it's so easy to do, and you can tell that these two are both pushing as Adam Blocker, well, frustrated and no longer fuel saving. Fastest lap, a 6:44.633. I have to go back into the history books, but I believe the lap record is underneath the 6:40, so gives you an indication as to the way the aero screen has slowed these cars down, changed their balance, and a big comparison tool to us as Bodefer starts to burn through his push to passes. He's 1.4 seconds clear. Traino is out of that drafting range as well, it should be noted.
Not quite out of the drafting range. It really goes to about 2 seconds, but it's out of the meaningful and useful drafting range. Traino will be getting just a little bit of draft, but crucially, it won't be affecting his aero balance hardly at all here. So it's right at that spot where you really start to lose hope if you're the trailing driver. But at the same time, Traino, he's got experience, and I do think that probably the i5G car, judging from the last run, I would say that the i5G car does look like it's firing up the tires a little bit slower than the Geodesic car up front. So that could be what we're seeing a little bit here as well, because Traino's really has stabilized that gap just a little bit. And I think that we still probably have a race on our hands, assuming that no mistakes happen, because Traino, as I'm talking about him, is starting to get a little bit out of shape here.
Yep. And this is through some of that fun stuff. There's in the VLN iRacing community, there was a member that drew up his own track map, because let's be honest, you don't need to know all the corner names. You just need to know relatively in which section they were. And this was just put the fun part. You round yourself through a very flat exit curve there into Brunschen, also known as YouTube Corner, Ice Curva. It's really, really treacherous as well. But we haven't seen any disasters there. That gap has blown itself up to over 2 full seconds. I start to think that Bodefer has got a lock on the race lead right now.
Yeah, Traino made a mistake. He got really loose coming through one of the corners back in the fun part, as you said, and he's just had to gather himself back in just a little bit. So, yeah, this is, I think, where Traino is going to have to start to use his push to pass, particularly on the back straightaway, but I'm still not sure whether Traino really has the downforce level to rein back in Bodefer, because it does seem like Bodefer might just have that little bit of a downforce advantage on the straightaways. Traino seems to be getting through the corners just a slight bit better come the end of this stint.
I tell you what, let's ask the people that will know. Let's bring in Brandon Traino, Christopher Demerit again. Brandon, you got time for a chat quickly? What's the setup looking like compared to John up front?
Chris and I were just discussing. I think I have damage of some sort. I rode the curb pretty aggressively coming into the pit lane in the in lap, and I'm not really getting to the RPMs I'm supposed to. And he's just dragging me down the straightaway. So he's probably trimmed out, but I'm not getting to the gears I should be at the end of the straightaways.
And you can tell us this is the world's simplest race course, isn't it? Left, right,
yes.
Left, right.
This is a left, that's a right. I think this is a straightaway. Hey, we're back on the front stretch. Okay, I know where I am.
Your easy train, just go straight.
Yeah, your co-driver is not helping you enough.
No, he's just sitting there eating the ice cream.
Final question, and we'll stop disturbing you. Why is this the best track in the world?
I can't answer that because I don't believe it is the best track in the world. But, however, if I win this race, I will change my stance.
There we go. Okay. Well, now I'm just going to put the commentator's curse down on him.
Yes, if you can convince John to wreck, then I will change my stance.
All right, we're going to say nice things. Good luck, guys, and we'll talk to you in a couple laps' time, hopefully. So, commentator's curse. We need Lorenzo Bonda here to start speaking that witchcraft onto Bodefur. I will say, the damage would explain some things here, Andrew, because 7:11.330 for Bodefur last time around, 7:14.763 for Brandon Traino.
Yeah, it's definitely a possibility, although at this point, Arjuna, I'm not sure that anyone on the track right now doesn't have at least some form of damage on their car, so it might just be a little bit of an excuse from Brandon Traino if I'm being honest here, because I'd seen Bodefur being fairly aggressive on those curbs himself, so we'll have to see what happens over the next couple of laps here.
See if we can figure out if there is any damage to that car. If there is, it's probably very slight, like Andrew does say, but you always want to believe what the drivers are saying, because they're the ones that have got the feel for, you know, what's actually going on with the car.
Yeah, and to be clear, I'm not doubting that Brandon Traino has damage. I'm just saying that I would also suspect that Bodefur by this point in time probably has damage as well.
Let's have a look. Super slow-mo it. Now, I don't have my yellow pen handy, but that car looks pretty okay, at least from this particular angle. Let's have a look at Brandon Traino. I'd say that looks fine too. The side pod doesn't look crinkled in on either the left or the right body of this car.
No, where there'll be damage is on the under tray and the underwing, and with the new damage model, you can get damage. Before, with the old damage model, you could see all the damage that you got on the car. With the new damage model, you can't necessarily see the damage that you get from the top side. It is possible to damage that underwing. So that could be what's happened to Brandon Traino, but at the same time, it's almost impossible to know at this point. And similarly, I would say that we haven't seen one driver who hasn't been riding the curbs at some point over the course of this race so far.
It's like threading the needle, right? It's tough to do. The damage likely is coming, and I'm going to give credit to the YouTube commenter that did point this out. Likely coming from the car running too low. A very similar situation to what we had with the iRacing 24 Hours of the Nürburgring, to which I would say, okay, run your car higher. It's as simple as that. There's a reason why in the sim we have a minimum ride height requirement at the front of 50 millimeters. In the real world, for a Nürburgring Nordschleife race, they are mandated, they are required to run a minimum of 70, which is a pretty big change, Andrew.
Yeah, this is definitely a track where you want to, in theory, run as high as you can, but the problem, Arjuna, is that in a car like this, you really can't do that because it just renders the underwing so ineffective that you just give up all possible hope of winning the race because you simply just don't have the front downforce. So it's almost better to take Traino's approach and run the car where you should be running it for performance, and then if you get damaged, the worst case scenario is you'd be lapping at the same pace that you would be even if you ran it as high as you need it to in order to avoid any damage.
So Bodefur and Traino both on the button. 1 lap to go next time by. We say 1 lap, but it's about 6-7 minutes, 25 odd kilometers. So as we've seen today, anything can happen. The 20 that started whittled down to just the 15 that are out there and running. Only one is actually a lap down by virtue of how big and gargantuan this track really is. Remember, iRacing has rain on the horizon. This is a track which is going to challenge the implementation of the rain to a whole new level. Will it rain on just parts of the track? Will it rain in some parts and snow on others? You'll have to wait and see. The forecasting system might be somewhat interesting. I tell you what, we're going to drag in our two favorite people who are being very, very nice with us. I tell you, if someone had asked me to do this, I would have told them where to go and it would have been quite rude. But we're going to get live pace notes from Christopher Demerit as they work through the fun part of the Nordschleife.
Left 6, small crest, 150. Right 5 down into left 4, long cut late. Into right 3 over crest. Opens 100. Left 4, very long down, and right 3, stay in, keep left. Right 3, very long. Right 3, very long here. 100. Caution left 5, tightens to 3. Into right 5, cut bump crest. Down left 6, and flat right crest. Caution slowing right 3, half long, into right 5 opens. Crest and left 6 extra long crest 150, left 6 half long straight past flat and right 6 straight past flat, cut.
I enjoy that way too much. And if you're wondering why you might need pace notes here, they actually do run rallies here at the Nordschleife, although they do it in the reverse configuration, so you do it backwards, which I find quite interesting.
Particularly if you're used to going in the forward direction, that would be definitely a very challenging thing to do because everything would not be where you expected it to be. But up front now, Arjuna, as we're coming into the final lap of this race, the final 10 minutes of this race, John Bodefer, he's just opened up a gap over Brandon Trano here, and he's just doing a fantastic job of locking down the front of this field.
25 odd kilometers to survive. It's as simple as that. The task presented to the Alpine Stars geodesic racing driver John Bodefer, a driver that we've seen dominate Indy Pro 2000s here live on RaceSpotTV. Similar beast, a little bit more power, but a very different track. Through the final quarter, getting a little bit squirrely. To the line, white flag this time around, 7 done, 1 to survive. 3.6 seconds the advantage. I tell you what, I thought this would be somewhat chaotic, but I didn't think any cars that got mixed up with an incident on lap 1 would be leading the race as we got the white flag out there.
No, that was definitely not what I was thinking would happen in this race, but we have had chaos and then some here, Arjuna. We've had two drivers who started on the front row. Both have issues. One is currently in the stands. One is currently in 12th place, 3.5 minutes behind the lead of the race, on the lead lap, I might add. And then we have John Bodefer, who, as you said, was very early in the beginning of the first lap of this race, sideways to the rest of the field, and he is somehow leading this race over Brandon Trano, your Indy 500 king.
Let's get a look at the first half of the Nordschleife, I tell you what. On board with John Bodefer. Since there's no battles really going on, yes, the tower's lighting up with push-to-passes, but they're all separated. Through the newly named Sabine Schmidt curve, up and then down into that first braking zone. So easy to snatch the left front and push yourself wide, but carry the momentum down the hill into the Hudson back where bravery is required. You hit the 2-kilometer sign on the left and pinned to the floor is the Michigan native as he works himself through this first sector of the Nordschleife. Be careful about the curbs here. You can clip them, but watch for the underside damage. Watch for them to hook you around, especially here at the very final section of this part of the track. Crucial run coming out of Quiddleback-Ahoa here as you come down the hill onto the power nice and early and work yourself up in towards Flugplatz. Now, of course, about 5-6 years ago, there was a horrific crash that killed, unfortunately, a couple of spectators. Track has been reprofiled in the real world, but no such thing has happened here on the sim. It is still flat to the floor for John Bodefer as he sweeps his way down into what Schwadenkraut and Arenberg, one of your first drafting opportunities in the lap. Flat here, top of the rev range, into Arenberg, downhill braking zone again, so gravity works against you. Don't want to clip the curb on the inside and funnel that momentum down the hill. Bodefer is going to get on the push to pass as well because, mentioned this earlier, fastest points, one of the fastest points on the track, and also one that bears a lot of danger if you get the curb on the inside wrong through Ardenau Forest. Look at how you carry the speed in, just breaking it off as slowly as you can. Roll it all the way through the corner. Bodefer a little bit squirrely in first gear, where traction is going to be very, very limited. Down into Metzfeld. I said this deceptively simple, but look at how it is in this car. Little bit of a lift. Just make sure you don't run yourself out too wide. In towards Kallenhard you come. This is where the Nordschleife really starts to pick itself up. Much more twisty. The walls narrow in as well. Through you come in towards this very fun corner, if you ask me. I love this one. That chicane just so treacherous to get through. In through miss hit miss, where you push yourself out wide on the run down to Wursleifen. We saw Tommy Osgaard make a mistake here in the Koanda Simsport Porsche 911 GT3 car a week and a half ago. No such mistake for the Michigan native. Into Exmuller, towards the louder left, towards Bergwerk. Still so much of this course to go, and if you don't know this track, the benefit that iRacing has, Andrew, is when you crash, you don't reset back to the pit lane, you reset to the start of the previous sector. It allows you to build up that momentum and the tempo of the track just that little bit more.
Admit it, we just did this onboard only so you could recite all of the corner names that you've memorized. Isn't that true, Arjuna?
I can do the rest of the lap if we want to. I did threaten Will Vincent with a good time and to sit down with him and talk through the track, but there is now a special section on our RaceSpotTV briefings of the Nürburgring 24 hours. It's called the Kunky Corner Guide name. Not the Kinky Corner Guide name, that's a slightly different one. We reserve that for just charity events with VCO. But I love myself the Nordschleife. I'm a simp, I guess you could say.
And it is definitely a track that is worthy of love and affection. It is one of those things where the more you lap it, the more you fall in love with it, and it's just it's so challenging to drive, so much fun. And there's the frustrating part for me, at least, when I'm lapping this, is there's always so many spots where you just make these small errors, and you know that no matter what you do, you can never get that perfect lap together, and it's always small mistakes, there's always small errors. So that's the frustrating part for me, but it's also one of the things that makes you keep coming back and turning lap after lap at this place. Highest
part of the track, Hoa Act, as we start the plunge down the hill through the very fast and technical stuff. Yeah, I've just done this track so much that I've fallen so deeply in love with it that it's a shame that I don't get to drive it too much anymore. I would have loved to do the Nürburgring 24 a couple of weeks ago, but 8 hours of commentary at some awkward timings make it just that little bit difficult. Just a couple of corners, a couple of sectors to go for John Bodefer. It will be 2 in a row for the Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing team, and again, in dramatic fashion. There's a reason why this is just a once-a-year trip. We don't come here more regularly because we can only take so much chaos. Our hearts can only take so much carnage before it gives itself out, but it's a treat, and it's the start of the week. If anyone's watching and wants to jump on in, Andrew, like we said earlier, the best time to jump in as we work our way towards the virtual month of May.
Absolutely, and what a week you could pick to try and try and master the IndyCar. This will definitely challenge you, and it'll definitely show you everything that this car is capable of and more. But I will say, Arjuna, Brandon Traino has really shown just how well you can drive from the cockpit while giving interviews. So I wouldn't put the kibosh on your dreams of commentating and driving to bed quite so quickly.
But no, I've tried that. It doesn't go great. Anyone who's watched my Twitch streams will know how foul my language gets, especially the stronger the races are. Paddy Wolf knows exactly what I'm talking about. But our journey in the green hell for another year comes to an end for now. So much fun to do this once a year, but for 8 laps, it's hold on and survive. Surviving this time after lap 1 drama is John Bodefer, who makes it 2 in a row for the Alpine Stars Geodesic Racing Team here in the rolling Eiffel Mountains. He conquers the green hell to win week 6 of your iRacing IndyCar Open Series. Give a round of applause as well to Brandon Traino, who came into this week with almost zero confidence, but shows that as long as you figure out where the track is going, you'll end up okay. 6 positions gained as well for him, a rocket of a start. David Porcelli across the line in 3rd. Great drive for him after some lap 1 shenanigans on lap 2 shenanigans on turn 1 of this race.
And Arjuna, what did we say about cursing people? Robert Malechka on the last
crash?
lap of the race.
Did he really just do that? It's going to be an awkward debrief for Powerslide Motorsports, I think. Mainly for me.
And Brian Carey. He's back, but he has severe damage now.
So how severe is
disastrous last lap here for Powerslide Motorsports?
Oh, okay.
Arjun.
Yes, no, that is, to quote Lewis McLeod, suboptimal, as Brian Carey will limp that car back home. Let's grab a look at your RaceSpotTV replay if we can. What happened to Malechka? Because I have a feeling Malechka had a big one, to put it mildly. Here we go. This is going to be a good look for us. So up in towards the mini carousel. Oh, okay. Lewis McLeod also says there's no such thing as the commentator's curse, just bad driving. I'm going to quickly steal that one right now.
Yeah, I'm going to say that was definitely a curse there for Robert Malechka, and that's unfortunately going to put him all the way back outside the top 10, unfortunately.
So let's have a look what happens to Brian. Not the same spot as at least, so there's that. It's going to be...
No, it's the corner after.
Yeah, it's the mini carousel. It's so easy to do. The car is just not meant to go through corners that are designed like that. It's as simple as that. It doesn't get more basic. And unfortunately, if you get caught out, you get caught out in a dramatic fashion. Although, having said that, 8th position could have been worse. Could have been a lot worse.
He was very fortunate that he had a good 40 seconds back to the driver behind him, and he was able to limp it home there. But, of course, we had a little bit more power slide drama right on that last lap of the race. But talking about what a race we've seen here, Arjuna, that was thrilling, it was exciting, it was chaotic, and above all, John Baudifar and Brandon Traynor at the front of this field, they really put on a clinic and showed the tremendous skill that it takes to get an IndyCar around the Nürburgring Nordschleife just for 8 laps.
Doesn't matter what you're in. It's a tough challenge, I tell you what. But the Alpine Stars geodesic racing driver, after 8 laps, conquers the rolling hills of the Eiffel Mountains to emerge victorious. In second place and just 5 seconds adrift was Brandon Traynor. I do think there was damage there given how he was able to keep pace with that 3 car in those opening 2 stints, but one mistake here does drop you back. David Porcelli, round of applause, did not let what happened to him in turn 1 hold him back. He recovers up to 3rd, while Severi Seppa showed some good pace, but only comes across the line in 4th. Brendan Lichtenberg, what a day for the Hyperstar. 13 positions gained, our biggest mover. He finishes inside of the top 5. Rashad Craig, Adam Crane, Brian Carey, Robert Malechka and Timothy Reed through the top 10. Some timing difficulties there because Malechka, if we bring that back up, actually not scored inside the top 10. So Timothy Reed, Andrew Marquez through the top 10, with Malechka down in 11th. Adam Blocker asserts his domination with the fastest lap after everyone has already crossed the line. He finishes in 12th after his internet disconnection, and Alexander Van der Sant brings across the trio of Powerslide cars outside of the top 10 in 13th. Gagliasso, the only car 1 lap down, while Northern Motto had a couple of issues in the final stages. He finishes 15th with Frankie D, Graham Saunders, Mitchell Welker, Benjamin Kopke, and Brett Gardner. The 20 cars that challenged themselves at the Green Hell, only 13 ended on the leading lap. And let's not dawdle, let's head over to Victory Lane, where here on RaceSpotTV, again, we find ourselves alongside John Baudifar, this time not in an Indy Pro 2000, instead in the Dallara IR18. And John, talk to us about the challenge, talk to us about the drama on lap number 1 for you.
Yeah, it was probably just a racing incident, it looked like to me. I'm sure Brandon was trying to get by with the red wall tires, wanted to get past me before we got deeper into the Nordschleife, and of course I was trying to keep him behind. So, you know, we both kind of worked it out and we're good there. But yeah, after that it was just charging hard, trying to catch back up before the pit stops, and trying to stay clean.
Now, I know I've seen you on the Nordschleife before, but are you one that we'd consider a Nordschleife ringer? Is this a place that you really do love, and you're somewhat like me and you're a savant for the corners and the corner names around here?
I probably couldn't tell you one corner name, but I do love racing here. It's a lot of fun, and it's a fun challenge in each type of car too. So the carousels here are really tricky. So you know, I was tiptoeing through those just to try and keep it straight, and then push in the rest of the lap.
And I mean, we don't see you and Graham too often, although we have seen Graham in an IndyCar in top-level competition here on the iRacing service. How much work did you guys put into the setup? Because that was something that we were picking up on as well, as different downforce trims and therefore different top speeds that the top 3 contenders were all able to work with.
I didn't put much work in the setup. I just did a lot of laps. I actually used Brandon's setup from Apex, so it was really smooth, really good on the outlaps, and it felt good on both sets of tires. So thanks to him for building the set. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I wouldn't know where to start, where to build a set, so I appreciate that for sure.
Well, congrats, John. Great run, great recovery from you, and hopefully not the last time we see you on a Monday night.
Yeah, appreciate you guys.
So that was your winner, John Bodefor. And let's slide over to the man that built the setup for your race winner, Brandon Traino. Brandon, not the best track in the world, I guess, since he didn't win.
Wait, you're telling me I got beat by my own setup?
Yes.
Oh, come on. That makes it even more sad.
I know.
No, it was that was fun. I was just telling Chris that I wasn't even, I guess I was really surprised that I led the race. I fully went into this race expecting to not make it past the first pit stop, but the fact that I led to the first pit stop was a win in my book.
It's not a bad track once you figure it out, isn't it? Come on.
Come
on.
I believe I had I had 2 brown pants moments, which is significantly less than I thought I would have, so I'll give you a little leeway on that one.
I mean, it's not a good race if you don't have to change your underwear at the end of it. You're not really on the limit then.
Yeah, there was, again, I don't know any corner names, but I touched the grass a couple times in a very high-speed corner and thought that the car was going to just snap and kill me, but it didn't, and we finished P2, so.
Well, and ultimately, I mean, in the point situation, Brandon, final question. Good day for you. Came into this one leading, good strength of field, second place finish. The rest of the contenders up there either not in this top split or really struggling. Overall, good day.
Yeah, it's a good day. I don't know how many we got, but it's definitely helpful after the mediocre finish with Auto Club. Again, we missed the setup a little bit and really didn't have a lot of time to put into it. We've been focusing on Indy quite a bit, and we do these open races for fun to try to blow off some steam. But yeah, I mean, obviously you always want to win the races, right, and do good. But yeah, no, this makes up for the last week's P8, I think it was. So.
Well, congratulations on surviving. Thank you for providing us with some good content, and send our thanks to Christopher Demerit as well.
Will do. Thanks.
So that was Brandon Traino, and finally we get the chance to talk with David Porcelli, the newest member of the Satellite Racing team. David, I mean, first off, you've been on a charge as an independent. What's it mean now for you to be teamed up with the likes of Adam Crane in this Dallara IRA18?
It's really exciting, and I think the key word here is just validating for all the effort I've been putting in on my own, and I'm glad that I have something to bring to the Satellite Racing program, and I'm glad that Adam thinks that too.
What was the prep like then for this week? Because, I mean, I'm sure you're getting spun up for the iRacing Indy 500 and all the other sort of regular races we have. I think it's fair to say this is by no means regular.
Yeah, it's been a very intense week, not to mention we have the holiday, and I've got some finals coming up as well. Yeah, just burning the candle at both ends right now, just trying to keep my head above water. It was a lot of fun testing on this track this week. I actually think I had a car to compete for the win today, just between the few incidents that were, the one in front of me and then the contact into the brake zone of turn 1. Between those two, sort of took me out of contention for that battle. But that was, great to see. And Adam helped me a little bit with my set right before we jumped into the race. And yeah, I think that really helped me get those extra few tenths that I needed through each sector in order to hunt the guys at the front down.
And let's talk about that incident very quickly, because 3 wide, no matter where you are on the Nordschleife, even if it's just turn 1 of the GP section, suboptimal, not ideal. What were you thinking as you headed down into that braking zone?
Well, simply, I committed to the pass attempt. I was using the push to pass on exit of that corner. I had felt I had been more than considerate with the guys in front of me, considering they had gotten around me because of an accident, and I was ahead in that brake zone. I see that the road kinks there, but, the car in front sort of can't see behind them. So that was tricky for me. You know, I was doing my best to just keep my nose clean through that race, and it didn't seem like everyone else felt the same way, despite the intensity of this track.
Well, at the end of the day, still on the podium. Can't complain too much, David. Congratulations on the result. Congratulations on the new team, and we'll see where things go from here.
Yeah, thanks so much, Arjuna. See you next time.
So David Porcelli joins us and rounds out our post-race podium interviews. Let's have a quick look at the schedule before we round things off. Half the season is done, and what a season it has been. I mean, we love these Mondays. They're always so entertaining. But next week, we go to a much more regular IndyCar race and a IndyCar track. We go to Barber Motorsports Park. What? You couldn't get too different. Usually, we do go road oval, but 2 road courses in a row, very, very markedly different.
They are definitely different, but they do share some similarities. There's a lot of elevation change at Barber, just like at the Nordschleife. There's some very off-camber corners. There's some really high commitment corners as well. And of course, we've seen a lot of action at Barber in the real world, and I expect nothing less from the drivers here as well, particularly down in that hairpin at Charlotte's Web. That's always a dangerous passing zone, and then the roller coaster through the final section. It's spectacular to watch these drivers try and conquer a track like Barber, and I can't wait to see what happens in 1 week's time.
And kind of just playing off what you're saying there quickly, Andrew, you know, the fact that now we got a good sense today of what it's going to be like with the tire compounds. The reds falling off after just 1 lap, even a lap here at the Nordschleife. Barber is one of those in-between tracks because you've got plenty of slow speed corners, but you've got some higher speed sections as well. I do think we're in for another interesting strategy gamut when it comes to having to use both compounds, how you play that out.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of really high load corners that they're not necessarily the fastest corners, but like you look at turn 2, turn 3, you look at the kink on the back straightaway, the quick left, right, and then of course that whole final sequence there, really, really high commitment, really requires a lot out of those tires. So I think you're going to see varying downforce levels, but more importantly, as you mentioned, tire strategy is going to be very important for all the drivers next week.
April 25th. Same time, same place. Here live on RaceSpotTV. Join us on a Monday evening at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for round 7 as we kick off the back half of this season. Of course, it's all building up to the Honda Grand Prix of Alabama, May the 1st, 1 p.m. Eastern, as the NTT IndyCar Series rolls on for round 4 of its 2022 campaign. But for now, it is time to bid you farewell. Again, it's a busy week of action here on RaceSpotTV. This weekend, we got some big events. We've got crew flying out to Denmark to be a part of an in-person broadcast for the first time in a while. So excited about that. But of course, if you love IndyCars, don't go anywhere. In about 40-odd minutes' time, the Lionheart Speedway Series goes to Atlanta for a 200-mile race there on the relatively high banks of the DW12. Justin Prince, Andrew Kinsella will be there to walk you through all the action. For now, though, we bid you farewell. A busy week of iRacing action coming up, and if you enjoyed what you saw today, do remember, every couple of hours, you can have fun. IR18, the Nordschleife, it happens once a year, so jump on in and get stuck in at iRacing.com. With new memberships, I think 40% off. Get your road to your own virtual checkered flag started today. On behalf of the team at RaceSpotTV, for my co-commentator Andrew Kinsella joining me for this entertainment, my name is Arjuna Kankipati, signing off for now, where we congratulate John Bodefer, who goes back-to-back for the Alpine Stars geodesic racing team here in the Eifel Mountains. We'll see you in a week's time.